Mama, why does she hate me? Those words, whispered through trembling lips, shattered something inside me. My 10-year-old daughter, Aisha, lay crumpled on the freezing platform, blood dripping from a gash on her forehead. Her small, fragile body was twisted unnaturally. Her red wheelchair overturned nearby. Mr. Fluffy, her beloved stuffed bunny, was flung to the side, dirt clinging to his worn fur. My baby girl, who had only wanted to visit her grandmother and ride the train she loved so much, now lay broken and confused, not just in body, but in spirit. The joy in her eyes had vanished, replaced by pain and a question no child should ever have to ask. One woman's cruelty had done this. In a moment of hate and rage, she had lashed out at innocence and left devastation in her wake. I dropped to my knees beside Aisha, her soft whimper barely audible over the chaos around us. I didn't care about the people shouting, the sirens, in the distance, or the flashing phones. All I could see was my daughter. All I could feel was her pain. And in that moment, I knew. This was the day everything changed. The day had started like any other, filled with warmth, routine, and quiet. Joy. The sun spilled golden light across our kitchen as I flipped pancakes and hummed along to the faint radio in the background. Across from me, Aisha sat at the table, her brow furrowed in concentration as she colored in her favorite book. Her brown hair was tied in 2 neat ponytails, and she wore her favorite purple dress, the one sprinkled with tiny white flowers. "Are we really going to see Grandma today?" she asked, her voice bubbling with excitement. "Yes, sweetheart," I smiled, placing a plate of toast and eggs in front of her. "Just like we planned. We're taking the train." She clapped her hands and practically bounced in her wheelchair. "Lightning's ready," she announced, patting the bright red frame. That's what she had named her chair, Lightning, because she said it made her feel fast, even if her legs wouldn't let her run. And of course, Mr. Fluffy would be coming. Aisha hugged the worn bunny close to her chest, his one floppy ear bent at an odd angle. "He's excited to see Grandma, too." "Then he'd better be ready for cookies," I said, ruffling her hair. Looking at her that morning, full of joy and anticipation, I never imagined the nightmare that was coming. By mid-morning, we were ready. I had packed a small bag with snacks, Aisha's medications, a change of clothes, and a backup charger, always prepared for the unexpected. With practiced ease, I helped her into Lightning, securing her straps and making sure Mr. Fluffy was nestled safely in her lap. Her eyes sparkled. "I'm ready, Mama, let's go!" The station was a bustling blur of movement. Families wheeling suitcases, announcements echoing from loudspeakers, and children crying or laughing in waves of sound. I maneuvered Aisha's chair carefully through the parking lot, scanning for speeding cars and distracted people. Inside, the chaos intensified. I bought our tickets from a kiosk, checked the massive board for our platform, Platform 3, departing in 15 minutes. Perfect timing. As we slowly made our way toward the platform, Aisha's head swiveled, taking in everything. "Look at that big train!" she gasped, pointing toward a sleek blue one pulling into a neighboring track. Her awe was infectious. "That's not ours, but it's a beauty," I said. Despite the noise and the crowd, there was a calm joy in our steps. Aisha waved at other kids, and some waved back. Others just stared at her wheelchair, but she didn't mind. She was used to it. Used. To being stared at but never let it dim her shine. At least, not yet. We reached Platform 3 with time to spare. The crowd was thick but manageable. Aisha chatted away about all the things she'd do at Grandma's. Bake cookies, feed birds, maybe even learn to knit. I smiled, soaking in her joy, grateful for this simple moment. And then, I noticed her. Tall woman stood several feet away, clutching an expensive-looking handbag and scowling like the world owed her something. Her blonde hair was pulled into a haphazard bun, strands flying like she hadn't cared enough to tame them. Her fingers tapped furiously at her phone screen. She exhaled with theatrical impatience. I tried not to stare, but her energy was like static, bitter, sharp, uncomfortable. Aisha noticed, too. "Mama," she whispered, "is that lady okay?" "I think she's just in a hurry," I replied gently. "Some people get upset when they have to wait." But when the woman's eyes locked on Aisha's wheelchair, her expression changed from annoyed to something darker. Her upper lip curled in disgust. She looked away, but not before I caught that look, the kind that said we were less, that we were in the way. I turned Aisha's chair slightly, shielding her view, hoping it would end there. I wanted to believe she was just another impatient traveler, but deep down, a mother's instinct told me this wasn't over, not even close. The train pulled in with a whoosh of brakes and the soft screech of metal. People immediately surged forward, eager to board. I guided Aisha toward the accessible entrance where a ramp would soon be lowered for her wheelchair. "Mama, will it go super fast?" she asked, eyes shining. "Yes, sweetheart," I said, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. "It'll zoom through the countryside like a rocket." She giggled, hugging Mr. Fluffy tighter. That sweet sound, so light, so pure, was cut off by a voice that sliced through the noise like a blade. "Move it, you're in the way!" I turned, and there she was, the woman from earlier, shoving through the crowd like a wrecking ball in heels. Her bag swung dangerously as she stormed toward us, her face red with fury. "Excuse me?" I said quickly, attempting to steer Aisha aside. "Sorry, we're just waiting for the ramp." But my politeness only seemed to inflame her more. "You're taking up way too much space with that thing," she snapped, gesturing at lightning like it was toxic waste. "Some of us actually have places to be. Why can't you use a regular door like normal people?" My stomach clenched. Aisha looked up, confused and hurt. "She needs the ramp," I said, struggling to keep my voice even. The woman stepped closer, voice rising. "Then maybe she shouldn't be here. This is a train station, not a hospital or special needs zone." Aisha shrank back, visibly shaken. The air thickened around us, charged and electric. Something terrible was coming. I felt it in my bones. The train doors slid open with a hiss, and the station attendant began lowering the accessibility ramp. For a moment, I felt a surge of relief. We were almost there. Just a few more steps, and we'd be on board, away from this horrible woman. I wheeled Aisha forward gently. She looked up at me with wide, trusting eyes. "Will Grandma be waiting at the station?" "Yes, baby," I whispered, smiling even though my hands were trembling. "She can't wait to see you." And then it happened. "Unbelievable," the woman muttered behind me. I heard her heels strike the ground hard, fast, taking up the whole platform like you own it. Before I could respond, before I could even turn, she lunged forward. With both hands, she grabbed the handles of Aisha's wheelchair and shoved. "Hard! Aisha!" I screamed, but it was already too late. The wheelchair rolled fast, too fast across the train floor toward the open doorway. My heart stopped. Aisha's terrified eyes locked onto mine as she tumbled forward, still strapped in, and then she was gone. I heard the crash before I saw it. The sound of metal slamming onto concrete, the crack of something fragile. The scream, my own, tearing from my throat. I jumped from the train with no thought to my own safety. My ankle twisted painfully as I landed, but I didn't care. Nothing mattered except my daughter. She lay twisted on the platform, her body motionless, her beautiful purple dress torn and dirty. Mr. Fluffy had flown from her hands and landed several feet away, abandoned in the dirt. "Aisha, baby, please, please, wake up," I sobbed, kneeling beside her. Blood trickled from a deep cut on her forehead. Her arm bent in a way that made my stomach churn. She wasn't moving. And then finally, a sound. "Mama," she whispered, voice paper thin. It hurts. Everything hurts. Tears poured down my face. I stroked her cheek, careful not to move her broken body. I'm here, sweetheart. Mama's here. You're going to be okay. All around us, people gasped and shouted. But above it all, I heard that voice again, from the train. Good, the woman said coldly. Maybe now they'll stay home where they belong. The platform erupted into chaos. Cries of horror, phones dialing emergency services, strangers rushing toward us. But I was frozen, kneeling beside Aisha, cradling her broken body as gently as I could, whispering her name like it was a prayer. She whimpered again, her lips trembling. Mama, am I bad? Is that why she pushed me? No, baby, I said, my voice cracking. You are perfect. You didn't do anything wrong. Some people, they're just sick inside. A young woman with glasses knelt beside us, tears streaking her cheeks. I recorded everything, she said, her voice shaking. She won't get away with this, I promise. Another man, older, gray-haired, gently lifted lightning from where it had landed. One wheel was mangled, the frame scratched and bent. He picked up Mr. Fluffy, too, now stained with dirt and torn at the ear. I saw the whole thing, he said grimly. I've lived a long time, and I've never seen such cruelty. That woman's a monster. Paramedics arrived minutes later, but it felt like a lifetime. They moved quickly, working around me as I clung to Aisha's good hand. They spoke in clipped tones. Head trauma, broken arm, possible internal injuries. They slid her onto a stretcher with practiced care. Her eyes fluttered open, searching. Don't leave me, Mama. I'm right here, I said, gripping her hand tighter. Not going anywhere. As they wheeled her toward the ambulance, I climbed in beside her. Through the back window, I saw police officers dragging the woman, Karen, I would later learn, off the train in handcuffs. She was screaming, kicking, snarling like an animal, but I didn't care. Not anymore. The only thing I cared about was my daughter. Still alive, still breathing, still mine. For now. The ambulance raced through traffic, sirens screaming above the muffled sobs I couldn't control. I held Aisha's hand the whole way, trying to be brave, trying not to fall apart as she slipped in and out of consciousness. Mama, she mumbled, barely audible. Why did she hate me so much? I swallowed hard. She didn't know you, baby. She didn't see how wonderful you are. Some people, they're broken inside. Tears streamed down her cheeks, mixing with blood and grime. Is it because I can't walk? Am I bad? No, no, sweetheart, I said fiercely. You are the bravest, kindest person I know. None of this is your fault. At the hospital, doctors swarmed her like bees. I had to let go of her hand as they wheeled her into imaging and trauma. One nurse guided me to a waiting area, but I couldn't sit. I paced the hallway, praying to every god I could think of, begging for my little girl to live. After what felt like hours, a doctor came out, his face serious. She has a severe concussion, a fractured arm, and internal bruising, he said. But she's stable. It could have been much worse. I nodded through a fog of fear and exhaustion. Can I see her? He nodded. When I entered the room, she was hooked to machines, her small face pale and still. I took her hand and kissed it gently, her eyelids fluttered. Mama, when are we going to see Grandma? My heart shattered all over again. She didn't remember. That night, after Aisha finally drifted into a medicated sleep, I stepped into the hallway and called Mr. Patel, our family lawyer. I want her to pay, I said, my voice hollow but firm. Every tear, every bruise, every second of pain my daughter has suffered. Mr. Patel didn't hesitate. This is attempted murder. She assaulted a disabled child and nearly killed her. We'll make sure she never walks free again. In the days that followed, news of the incident spread. The video went viral. Strangers reached out with outrage and support. But none of that soothed the ache inside me. I didn't want attention. I wanted justice, and I would fight for it with everything I had. The road to healing wasn't just physical, it was emotional, and it was long. Aisha underwent surgery to repair her fractured arm. The doctors inserted pins to hold the bone in place. She spent weeks in the hospital, followed by physical therapy and countless follow-up visits. But what haunted me most were the things she stopped doing. She no longer sang while coloring. She didn't ask about train rides or grandma's cookies. Her laughter had quieted, replaced by questions that pierced my heart. What if there are more people like her, Mama? I didn't have a perfect answer. I just held her and said, "There are also good people, baby, and we're going to find them." Her therapist, Miss Linda, introduced her to art therapy. At first, Aisha drew herself small under dark clouds, but slowly, those clouds began to lift. Her drawings changed. She started sketching herself with wings, standing tall with lightning bolts in her hands. The community rallied around her. They raised funds and donated a brand new wheelchair. She named it Rocket, and little by little she began to come back to us. 3 months later, the trial began. The courthouse was packed. Reporters, supporters, and community members who had followed Aisha's story. Karen Elizabeth Monroe walked in wearing an expensive black suit and sunglasses, as if she were attending a fashion show, not standing trial for nearly killing a child. She claimed it was all an unfortunate accident, that she'd lost her balance, that she was distracted. But the video told a different story. Sarah, the young woman who had filmed it, testified first. Her voice trembled with emotion as she played the footage in front of the jury. The entire courtroom watched Karen shove Aisha's wheelchair with deliberate force. The gasps were audible, the truth undeniable. When it was my turn to testify, I looked straight at Karen. "My daughter," I said, voice strong despite the lump in my throat, "is the bravest person I know. She didn't deserve what happened to her. No child does." Karen's lawyer tried to argue stress, a bad day, even mental instability. But none of it could erase the hate in her voice or the violence in her actions. The jury took only 2 hours to return a verdict. Guilty of attempted murder. Guilty of committing a hate crime. The judge sentenced Karen to 15 years in prison and ordered her to pay every cent of Aisha's medical expenses. She didn't cry. She didn't apologize. She just stared ahead, cold and unfeeling. But it didn't matter. We had won. Life didn't return to normal overnight, but it did eventually begin to bloom again. Aisha continued her therapy with Miss Linda, where she drew herself taller, stronger, sometimes even flying. Her confidence returned in fragments, like tiny rays of light after a storm. Each day brought small victories, a full night of sleep without nightmares, a smile at breakfast, a giggle during her favorite cartoon. Then one day, she said something that caught me off guard. "Mama, I want to go back to the train station." I turned to her, surprised. "Are you sure?" She nodded, serious but steady. "I want to show I'm not scared anymore." So we went. And it was nothing like before. The station workers greeted us with warmth. People smiled kindly, made space, even waved to Aisha as we approached the platform. There was no anger, no cruelty, only support. As the train pulled in, she looked up at me with that sparkle I thought had been lost. "She didn't break me," Aisha said. "I'm still here." That day, we boarded the train without fear. She sat in her new wheelchair, Rocket, with Mr. Fluffy safely tucked in her lap, and when the train started moving, Aisha looked out the window, smiled, and whispered, "I'm flying." I believed her. She truly was. Today, Aisha is 16. She's no longer the fragile girl clinging to Mr. Fluffy on a hospital bed. She's bold, outspoken, and full of a quiet fire that inspires everyone she meets. She still uses Rocket, her third wheelchair, now decorated with stickers from all the places she's traveled since. She gives talks at schools about disability rights, inclusion, and the power of kindness. She's been invited to youth leadership, conferences, appeared on local news, and is even writing a book. She's calling it The Girl in the Rocket Chair. And me? I'm still her mother, still in awe of the strength she's found. We don't talk about Karen much anymore. Karen served her sentence and moved away after her release. She never apologized, not once. But we don't need her apology, because Aisha's spirit was never truly broken. That moment on the platform could have destroyed her. But instead, it revealed something unshakable: her ability to forgive, to grow, and to shine brighter than ever. One act of hate became the spark for a life dedicated to change. Whenever I see her on stage, sharing her story with compassion and bravery, I remember the little girl who whispered, "Mama, why does she hate me?" And I thank the stars that the answer didn't define her. Aisha defined herself, and she chose to rise.